lovely.
How are you?
Yeah, all right, getting there.
How's incredible pregnancy?
Oh, it's not incredible. It's an absolute, it's an absolute ball ache. But
No, I mean like incredible's the wrong word. I mean like
yeah,
far,
I'll show you.
like far along.
Yeah,
like you're incredibly pregnant. That's the wrong
very
word.
Pregnant. I'm trying to get it into the shop so you can see. I'm the size of an egg.
Wow.
Yeah.
Extreme pregnancy.
31 weeks. So there's another 7 till I have him. But which seems like a long time. But there we go. I'm looking forward to hot yoga.
That's how long they take to cook.
Yoga at Christmas.
Yeah. You'll be able to go back.
Yeah.
You could stretch so much further in the heat.
That's it. You go deep. Oh,
yeah. But it affects how well I can do yoga the next time, even though it's not hot.
Yeah.
Because my body's stretched that much further.
Yeah.
Oh, it's making me want to go, actually.
I know. The minute you're told you can't go, you're just obsessed. You're like, I want to get up at 6 a.m. and go to a really hot class.
And then exactly. And when you can go, you're like, oh, it seems like it would work.
Oh, why would I do that? Why would I get all hot and sweaty?
Human beings are so complicated.
Or we're not actually. We're very simple. It's like
Well, it's that too. One of those, definitely one of those. The Spontaneity Shop presents The Guilty Feminist Watchers, and just like that, the Sex and the City Reheal. With me, Deborah Frances White, and my very special guest, Sara Pascoe. Season 2, Episode 8, 100 Years Ago. Hello everyone, this is me, Deborah Frances White, and with me today is comedian, writer and guilty feminist favourite, it's Sara Pascoe. Hello, Sara.
Hello. You've got a husky voice a little bit.
I've been rehearsing my play all week.
So you started smoking. Started smoking outside.
No, I think. Can you imagine? No, I think it's the sexy husk of hard graft.
Yeah,
Sara.
Yes.
I'm virtually down a mine in that rehearsal room.
No,
so much thinking,
it's great.
chatting.
Yeah.
I feel like Phoebe from Friends when she has that. She gets a cold and then she does husky singing.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you'll miss it when it's gone.
Yeah, I'm loving it. How are you feeling? Because you, if the internet reports correctly, and also I've seen you with my own eyes, are quite pregnant.
I'm quite pregnant. My husband's been out of the country for 4.5 months. I have a toddler about to turn 18 months. And this is good, actually, as a sort of, before I talk about the show, this is my disclaimer. I'm a very lonely lady who's had a very isolated life. And the only TV programme I've watched that wasn't a cartoon called The Adventures of Paddington is this show. So it means too much to me. And I have I have nothing to compare it to in terms of quality. This is television to me and my friendship group.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So what we need to caveat here or take into account is that you've seen no television ever effectively. That's what we have to imagine.
In the last few months, the only thing I've seen is things that my son will sit down for 5 minutes.
So Bluey, that kind of thing?
No, he'll give Bluey 30 seconds. Paddington is the only thing where, for some reason, he will sit still for longer than a minute. He might sit through a whole Wiggles song, Debs, but it's not guaranteed.
Oh, God.
And then this series started, and I allow myself, because obviously, they wake up really early, babies, children. And so I don't actually watch TV because I don't want to stay up any later than necessary. But on Thursdays, I'll stay up and watch, or maybe when he naps, I watch this show. Yeah.
I feel like I need to come round and do an evening shift for you.
Oh, bless you.
You know, I used to be a nanny.
I know you did.
I'll come round this week. I'll take a shift.
The problem is, because my husband went away, what I didn't realise is that, so my son got separation anxiety, so childcare became an issue because he became so upset. So it wasn't that I'm not some martyr going, I'm going to do all of this myself. Him and the dog, as a tag team of twats, have driven away anyone that I could pay to help me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When anyone comes to the house, they're like, she's going to leave. Mummy's going to leave. We go. We go now.
Oh, yeah. So they freak out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if I come round, it's going to make it worse, is what you're saying?
Oh, no. What I'm trying to say is, if you do come round, please come round another time and meet my son when he's in a nicer mood.
Oh, just want to help you, though, Sarah.
I picked him up from nursery yesterday and they said, is he very tired? And I said, actually, he's not. He's sleeping really well. And they were like, okay, then he's just in a really bad mood. I was like, yeah, he's really grumpy.
I mean, I know Steen's been working hard in Australia on a TV show and he's going to get off the plane jet-lagged, and I still hope you put the child into his arms and just walk out the door and say, just
goodbye,
cope with this.
Goodbye, see you after Christmas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you just go, I'm checking myself into a spa for a weekend.
Yeah.
That's what you should do. Check yourself into a really nice hotel
Debs,
with a massage.
I'm going to sound like a negative Nina. Everything's rubbish when you're pregnant. They won't massage you properly. If you do go, I did go in my first pregnancy, and they do like this thing where they just sort of lay their fingers on you and rub them around like as if everything's going to cause problems. So you can't get deep tissue when you really need it, and they don't go into your hips or your shoulders. It's like a little soft wipe. So it's just useless. No, even spas are ruined, and you can't get in the sauna, you can't get in the jacuzzi. Oh, you should go swimming. No. You should go swimming. It will help strengthen your pelvic floor. Everything's rubbish.
So you have to swim, but with this enormous watermelon strapped to you.
Yeah.
Which no one wants to do. And you can't do any of the fun, relaxing stuff. Yeah. Well, listen, you're not selling it to me, I'll be honest.
I honestly... I think I could do a lot for the birth rates in this country. I'm the first woman who's had IVF twice going, actually, it's a huge mistake.
It's not eventually. Eventually they'll be 5 and 7 or something.
Well, there was there's something in this episode where the two daughters, obviously one of them's adopted, but of Charlotte, are really happy she's got a job and they're not going to see her anymore. And I was wistful, like one day I won't have to see my children. One day, one day I'll get to go back to work.
Well, also, it could make you feel like, I can't believe I'm pushing this child. I'm growing this child inside of me and pushing it out so that in 10 years, 15 years' time, it can go, please leave. We're bored of you. How ungrateful.
I think that bit's liberating. I think that
we should all be grateful to our mothers all the time, really.
Do you think so? Yeah, of course we should. Of course we should.
What you're doing for your child now, who's being vile to you, and you're sort of spoon feeding him, and he's being nasty, and then in 20 years' time, he's going to go, oh, she's calling me again. Hi, Mum. Yep. No, sure. I'm just with my mates now. Oh,
yeah.
And he's going to be rolling his eyes at somebody. You're inventing those eyes right now. You're growing them. He wouldn't have eyes without you. You're not allowed to have a massage so he can have eyes.
Right, okay. 20 years, I'm booking you, Debs, to turn up in that pub and give him a lecture. There'll be a new podcast series, Deborah Frances White. Lectures children of guilty feminists.
Yeah. I'm just going to, exactly. I'm going to be like, do you know what your mother did for you? And you can't even bother to pick up the phone. I saw you reject
That's
that
call. That's the title of the podcast. Do you know what your mother did for you? That's the title of the podcast. Yeah. It's like, who was that guy who used to turn up with a big red book, This Is Your Life? It's like that, but negative to teenage boys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, and do you know, while you were cooking, while your mother was actually inventing the very ears you're listening out of, your father went off to do a glamorous television show in Australia for 4.5 months.
Yeah.
And she was left with just you and your older brother who wouldn't cooperate because of some, small child issues that none of us will truly understand. And the dog was being a twat.
Yeah.
Yeah. The dog he'll understand that.
Yeah.
That'll
reframe it for him. Yeah.
In a way that won't at all embarrass him in front of his friends in the pub.
No. It's so hard, isn't it, to imagine being a baby? Like no one really believes they were actually a baby. I don't actually believe I was a baby. Do you? I mean, you can't actually believe what inside a woman. Come on now, that's unrealistic.
I try and imagine it. Well, I've done some psychedelics and I've revisited it during psychedelics.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's been really, really interesting. I find it, this is not at all on the theme of the podcast, but I find it a little abstract because my mother who raised me is different from my birth mother.
Yeah.
So when I met my birth mother, I kept trying to imagine being inside her as a tiny, interuterine creature.
I think it's much more reasonable to be raised by people who aren't pretending they grew you. Because I had the opposite, where I was brought up by the woman who said, that I'd been inside her uterus. And I kept thinking, don't lie. Like, how would that happen?
Gaslighting me.
How would I get inside there? Oh, I come out of your vagina. Yeah, beard, as if. Like, this is the weirdest story anyone's ever made up.
Did you think it was like Santa and it was going to be revealed as a sort of thing children are told?
Yeah, I thought it would be like, actually, of course, we grow you all as eggs inside a lab, and then we give you to your parents. That's why you can't remember anything pre-18 months old. Like,
yes, you're delivered at 18 months and they tell you this story.
Yeah, you're invented, you're switched on. And then I'd have gone, that's much more realistic. Thank you.
You're starting to convince me of it now.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking maybe that's the truth. Except you are there currently cooking a child.
That's the thing that I have to sort of every day go, no, this is really happening. Yeah.
This
real. Must happen.
It's so sci-fi. Yeah. It is actually very sci-fi, the idea of growing someone inside of you and then that person bursting out. It's wild, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to get your head around, which is why I do understand for children why they don't absorb it or want to absorb it. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Well, look, just to give you a break from thinking about the endless nature of pregnancy, this is the only television show you've seen for what seems like years.
Yes.
How do you feel about And Just Like That?
I feel big feelings, Deborah.
Do you?
Really big feelings.
I'm so thrilled you're on. Tell me everything.
Well, what my thought I had 2 days ago, knowing we were going to speak about it, is that the original Sex in the City was a show about sex, and it didn't often to me feel like a show about women. And I know that women were the main characters and that there were some issues that they thought were targeted at women, maybe like menstruating while you had sex or something like that. But the whole thing felt very unfemale, actually. Felt quite shallow. And I think the reboot feels to me a show about love and much more about women than the original. I know that there was some really clunky stuff in the first series in terms of, but what I really admire, because like lots of people, I'm trying to be better and trying to absorb and be more aware, is how much thought they had put into representation and speaking about privilege and bringing those characters into now. And I thought in a really, really positive, not in a perfect, but in a very positive way. And then this series, now that all the characters, especially the new characters, are gelled in, I love it. I love the celebration of love now, whereas there was a lot of toxicity in the relationships in the original comedy show, and it was a comedy show, so of course there was lots of imperfect people doing dramatic things. But no, I'm really enjoying this series, really enjoying it.
I have to say, now that all of the more clunky parts around trying to make this contemporary show that reflects more progressive values, I think they've taken the note. Can we just let people be people and not have black women lecturing white women all the time on race? It is a lot better. Now we know Seema, now we know Lisa.
But it wasn't, I don't know if you've gone back to watch series 1. Have you? And I don't know if your listeners have, because I did. I had to do revision for this. So I rewatched the Aiden series. I watched series 3 and 4 of the original Sex and the City.
Oh, wow.
And then I watched series 1, and I liked it so much more because I'm part of the world now. That those bits to me that felt so awkward, like Miranda saying like, I didn't expect you to be the teacher, you had braids. But what you can see now is how much work they put into the exact wording they put into her mouth. Oh, and also I think it's very difficult because it doesn't matter how often you acknowledge your own privilege, it's still annoying. There's no amount of times you can say, oh, by the way, I'm privileged. And people go, okay, that's fine then, as long as you know. Like, enjoy your lovely life.
Self-awareness is no excuse. So I'm going to do a quick recap of this episode so we can dive in.
Yeah.
As that was very insightful and incisive what you just said. So in this episode, Miranda pisses off the young interns at her law firm by getting the cushy jobs and a promotion on her first week. Carrie Airbnb's Che's apartment as a shag pad for her and Aiden and gets domestic, buying pepper mills and cheese graters. Anthony tries to fire Giuseppe, his newest hot fella bread delivery guy, for being too hot, while gay, but instead ends up entangled in the dough with him. Charlotte, another 50-something woman who's been out of the workforce and yet unaccountably has been offered a huge job, has a strange crisis about being a size 12, Imagine she has a belly of some sort and has apparently never worn Spanx before, and nor has she heard about the body positive or acceptance movements despite having two politically aware teenagers. Seema avoids Carrie, newly in love with her old love because she's never had a great love and doesn't want to be a third wheel. And finally, Carrie tells Aidan she made a mistake and basically denies dead big in an incredible 180.
Yeah.
The likes of which we've never seen in Sex and the City before, in my opinion. So those are the storylines, because I do the recap because some people say they don't watch the show, they just listen to the recap to find out what's happening.
Oh, they've got even less time on their hands than I have. Like, I need a 3-minute precis.
No, I think they just don't want to watch it, but they enjoy us criticising it.
Criticising it. Have you been having a go at the show? Look, if we're going to start with criticism, they should have padded Charlotte's belly if they wanted to actually show someone. It felt like an actress who didn't want to look. She's not in any way. She obviously works out, eats incredibly well. She's taking very good care of herself. She's in a massive show, which is so two-dimensional. It is a lot about what they look like and what they're wearing, which must be a huge amount of pressure for any person. So then to have a scene of like, oh, my belly with a totally flat stomach.
It was strange, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really, really strange.
CGI one in. Come on now.
It broke the internet. The internet went absolutely wild about it. Yeah, I've had so many people messaging me, like listeners, just messaging me before this saying, you are going to talk about this, aren't you? Yeah. Because this made me so angry.
But I didn't understand it. I watched it again in the car on the way here. I watched it again because I don't understand. They weren't explicit about why she took the Spanx off. Obviously, for some reason, it affected her vocal cords. That was an odd choice. We've all worn restrictive underwear and been able to talk normally. But she then takes it off. What? Because she saw a woman who wasn't a size 10 for the first time. It was It was a response to another member of staff, and it was so confusing. She walks in, she sees two people who are very, very slim. Then she sees someone who, normal size, not skinny, and
has a midriff,
but it wasn't explicit that Charlotte went, of course, I like myself too. Why am I being? It wasn't actually. It seemed like she saw a fat person and went, okay, I'll take my Spanx off then. I'm not the biggest woman here. It felt it could be misconstrued.
The thing with Charlotte is she's got 2 children, 1 daughter, 1 non-binary. They must have had body moments of going, either discussion around body acceptance, Lily is
in the first series, because I've been rewatching it, there's a thing where Lily posts a picture of herself in sports gear looking sexual at 15 years old that Charlotte has to deal with. There is a whole storyline. So, and there are people who are aware of body positivity when it comes to other people, but are still very harsh on themselves. This is sometimes the problem with a C plot in a show. You want to show the beats of Charlotte's back to work, going back into the workplace. There are lots of things to worry about in terms of competency, capability, suddenly leaving one mindset and going into another and wanting to do a good job. But for Charlotte, it's about where the belt sits on her dress. And actually the excitement of her going back into employment was Charlotte was someone who was really good at her job, so good that everyone made a fuss about her always. And again, there's that scene in the first series where it's a mother-in-law who's saying that the character's wasted her money, and Charlotte goes through the artists that they've invested in, and art is an incredible investment, and Charlotte is she's always stayed on top of that. So what a shame that going back to work wasn't revision, it wasn't mental load, it was shopping and belts. But then we remember the universe that we're in, and that is the universe.
A generous interpretation might be sometimes we put our anxiety. I know I do this.
Yes.
I put my anxiety on a tiny thing because actually what I don't want to accept is that but it would have been a much more interesting storyline if she thought, she left the workplace just because she wanted to get pregnant when she was 35 or 36, maybe a bit older because she had already turned 36, so maybe she's 37. The idea of a woman walking back into a job 20 years later, basically.
Yeah.
Having been out of the workforce that time, I don't think it matters how much reading you've done. You would think, fuck, it's all changed.
Yep.
I'm not going to know anything.
I'm going to look stupid. You'd worry about looking stupid is what you'd worry about.
I would worry about that, that I've, and maybe she is channeling that, but then that story needed to be told, that I'm channeling it into what do I look like.
And
because I
also
can't face, it's
Harry,
really about my head.
Harry, who is my favourite character, Harry, who has always been obsessed with the way how sexy he finds Charlotte and how attractive Charlotte is, I don't think he would allow the bone broth crap. I think he's also when you share a house with someone, he hadn't noticed she was starving herself, which is what bone broth is. It's not sustenance. And you would go, you're absolutely. And also in every scene, she is told how wonderful she looks. So it keeps being reinforced. The value you have to the workplace is what you look like in your new dress.
It's very true. It's very true. I did actually speak to somebody who is in the art world, because I said, women who've been out of the workplace since their 30s don't just get offered jobs like that, do they? And she said, actually, she might, because if you have a lot of rich friends who are art collectors,
Russell
that's
Tovey.
a huge value. Russell Tovey.
Yeah.
That's a huge value to a gallery, because you can invite your friends in and say, this artist is emerging, you should invest in this artist now, or whatever.
Yeah.
So actually, she thought she probably would. But I also think that's not being dealt with in this show, that it's a real problem when women take career breaks to have children, that they are not welcomed back in. And for Miranda to have left one sort of law and then immediately get cover, I mean, maybe she would, I don't know, but it feels to me like they're not really dealing with the fact that women in their 50s are often, just for have two characters, just be like, why don't you step into the top job? I'm like, that's a real issue for women.
Well, even Carrie, you could say it's all of them. And maybe this is the thing with the fact that it is a comedy show dealing with very superficial things, but some of these issues now are massive. But they're still dealing with them in quite two-dimensional ways. Carrie just was able to sort of sidestep into podcasting and being a book writer. Like there's some kind of difference between writing for a newspaper and then now she writes books. She keeps saying, I write books. And Miranda.
To be fair, we've both done both.
We don't go on about it, Debs. To be fair to us.
I'm going on about it now.
Yeah, that's it. Just drop. And then there's going to be an ad there for if you are you are thinking of investing in any books.
Unbound.
Yes. If someone knocks on the door of your flat, because this is what happens with Carrie, and says, "Oh hi, I'm Luciette. I live downstairs." Do you say, "Hi, I'm Deborah. I'm a writer. I write books."
I write books.
Yeah, just so they don't think you write anything else.
No, I would absolutely not do that. I would absolutely not. But I think that's something they're not dealing with. And as you say, this sort of waste of time storyline about a woman who's clearly a size 10 to 12, imagining she has a belly and putting on 3 pairs of Spanx. I'm like, if you're as sensitive as that about the way you look, you've used Spanx before. I'm sorry.
Yes.
You do not put on 3 pair of Spanx so that you can't talk to go to a working job. You just put on a dress you like more. If you think, this dress might have been a bit of a mistake, you have a favourite dress that you'll wear on day one.
And also you have an explicit moment where you go, I'm focusing on my tummy, because what I don't want to focus on is my actual fear, which is, can I do this job? Will I do a good job? And then that moment's enough for us to go, yeah, we're women. Sometimes we are a little bit mad about the wrong thing because we feel insecure about something else.
And look, no shade to anyone who's been trained, myself included, who's been trained by a patriarchy to hate their body and looks down at their relatively conventional body and goes, that's not perfect, that doesn't look like a billboard.
Yeah, or tries on an outfit and goes, not for me. Tries on an outfit and goes, that's for people who have X, Y, and Z, big boobs, a bigger bottom, a curvy waist, all of those things. All of us have absorbed it. None of us are above it. But hopefully what exists in our lives and what is more responsible on television is to have a character go, by the way, this is body dysmorphia. And you are wonderful. And can we talk about something else now? While you eat a baguette.
Yes. I think that the boss of the gallery, or whoever it was, coming downstairs and with her midriff out, being a size probably 16, was meant to be Charlotte, you've got body dysmorphia. This sexy woman's just come down the stairs with her tummy out, and she definitely doesn't have a flat tummy. Therefore, you should take your Spanx off and put the belt back on, because you've thrown yourself into an insanity spiral. Even if that doesn't matter what size your tummy is, you're sexy, you're fabulous. That's what it's meant to be.
But there's still something else reinforced, which is that women look at each other and go, oh, they're thinner than me, they're bigger than me, to place ourselves. There's still something very unhealthy.
Oh,
and
it's
also,
so, no,
for the woman who's
I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying I think that's what they're going for.
Yes, that's what they're going for. And it's the vagueness of it that I don't like. And imagine, I always just imagine the actor getting the breakdown, like, fat woman who makes Charlotte feel okay about the fact that she's very skinny. Yeah. Oh, I've got a really big job coming up. They want to see my belly button.
And it's just so Charlotte can look at me and go, I'm not as fat as that, therefore I'm allowed to take my Spanx off.
I can breathe.
And I just don't think Sex the City / And Just Like That should attempt social issues, really, because they always get it so clunkily wrong. They just never get it right.
I think
they should just let these characters be fabulous and have sex, and But this would have been so much more interesting if Charlotte had been reading up on different artists and panicked and thought, I can't compete. Yeah. These women know. I'll tell you what we often play. Let's pretend we're in the writers' room and fix this show. So hubristically, I'm sure, but I do think, I don't know, if you were in that writers' room, Sarah, I think I would pitch Charlotte has lunch with the new, whoever's running the gallery, the gallerina, whatever it is.
Yes.
Who mentions an artist she's never heard of.
Right, yeah.
And she pretends she knows who they are.
Okay, yeah.
And then has to go and research them, and then starts going, who else don't I know about?
Okay.
And spirals that she's not going to be able to do this job because her ancient experience isn't what's needed now on the ground. And she maybe goes to visit some hip new artist who looks at her like she's some kind of wasp in a dress with a pink collar.
Yeah, so just quickly, I think so many terrible things happened in the original series that they did have to. I do appreciate the clunky worthiness trying to be better. Otherwise, don't bring back the series. I can't believe some of the episodes are still up in terms of how they talk about sex workers, how they talk about trans people. There is some really whoa, these things were so loved and we were so blind to so much sort of hatred and non-empathy. Anyway, my storyline, Charlotte banged a lot of artists back in the day. So someone mentions, this exciting artist, this the next big showing that they've got, and it's the guy who painted Charlotte's vagina, or it's someone she slept with. So it's very much in the Sex and the City world. But yes, she has a history and she has qualifications. But is that going to be taken seriously when she realises she was a single gal? Yes, she was looking for love, but she also did a lot of dating, as did her friends. Where is that storyline where we're haunted, not by the good exes, but the bad ones who don't go away?
Oh my God. Do you remember when she shagged the Hasidic Jewish artist?
I don't.
Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But that's where she worked, so that's where she met men.
But she was a wasp when she shagged the Hasidic Jewish artist. She could meet him now.
Yeah.
Where he's got some kind of, and he finds out she's Jewish now. And he's like, oh my God, and he's pursuing her. And she has to say to Harry, there's a big exhibition of his work that's now at this gallery. And she has to say and he's pursuing her, and she has to say to Harry, I had a massive fling with him back in the day, and maybe there's still chemistry there, which we never get to see from Charlotte, who's such a good girl.
It never goes away. The fact that women sometimes, pursued, harassed, have to balance their laughing at awful jokes in the workplace. That doesn't go away because you're in your 50s or in your 40s. Yeah. To show that you think, sexual harassment is something that happens when you're young in those places and have no power. Charlotte has power now and still is in a situation. God, why am I getting carried away like it happened? But still is in a situation where she's having to not be herself, to be professional, to allow a man to be unprofessional, because that's what the workplace is for many people.
Yes, yes. There was also that artist who dressed her up as a man, who she had.
Yes, that was and did sexy photos and she had those big socks in her trousers.
But that's interesting now because she has a gender fluid child.
Exactly, who then might see that picture and say, "Is this fun? Is it?" Or
yeah, or what? How did you feel about it? You never told me that you did this drag piece.
You played, you played with your presentation.
And that all of that, there's so much great stuff that could come back, so many Easter eggs that could be there. Can I tell you an Easter egg that I think is there with the Charlotte storyline?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought this was a brilliant Easter egg. Now, I often see things, because I know the original series so well, that I believe they're messages from the writers.
Yeah.
in my head
Okay.
that going, this is an evocation. In truth, I think they're not. I just think I know the first series better than they do.
There must be someone in the writer's room who is the Debs, who goes, by the way, everyone, who,
I hope so.
Yeah, I think there is.
I hope so. There was an Easter egg here. When Charlotte looked through her box of photos, imagining herself as she was, there's a picture of the four of them, of the four OG cast. Do you know where that photo was taken? We saw that photo taken in the original series. Do you remember where they all took a photo together?
Well, they went to Las Vegas, and it was when Samantha was with Richard and was really worried, and they eventually split up, and they couldn't get a photo all together, but then they did, and it's amazing.
Yes, that's the photo. It was actually Atlantic City,
It was like
Vegas.
But it was in a casino. That's why I thought it was Vegas.
And on the way back on the bus, because she breaks up with him, so they can't go back on the private jet. They have to go back on a coach with all these old ladies, and they get an old lady to take a picture of them. That's that picture. And in that photo, that episode was, I think, called Old Maid, and Charlotte was turning 36 and terrified about being an old maid.
Yeah. So it's a lovely reflection there, isn't there, to then look back and go, you are so young and lovely.
And yet now she kind of wants, what she's pining for in this is to be that old person. And then she takes this other picture of herself just standing on her own, a tiny bit slimmer than she is now.
Yeah.
And puts it on a hanger and goes, I'm going to get back there. And I'm going to do it in the most ridiculous way of like eating
this is
bone
where there
broth.
should be like a red button thing like they have on the BBC, where someone says, hey, just by the way, we're trying to reflect you back at you. You'll never be as thin and young as you are now. Stop being so hard on yourself. Back to the programme.
Back to the programme. And also, thinness was, this show started in the 90s. Thinness was at a premium, went through the noughties, which, if anything, was worse than the 90s. Thinness was incorrectly at a premium. But here's the big Easter egg. Do you remember when we have seen Charlotte in the original Sex and the City going through a box of photos and things, and feeling pain?
Was it after she had a miscarriage?
No.
She was on a sofa when she had the miscarriage, okay.
That's a good guess, and it's not right.
No, okay.
Season one,
yes.
Do you remember them going to a baby shower upstate New York?
Oh, okay, with a friend.
There was a wild woman called Lainey.
She took the shoes off and she lost her shoes. Carrie lost her shoes. Different one.
Different baby shower, funnily enough. Different baby shower.
Yeah.
Different baby shower. But in this one, Lainey's a wild woman, was a wild child, and now she's got all the trappings of the Connecticut.
And then she gets drunk and does go out and she's crazy again. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, in that one, she says she's going to call her, she's about as pregnant as you are, Lainey, and she says she's going to call her baby Shyla.
Yeah.
Charlotte gets very upset because that's the secret baby name she's got for her future daughter.
Yeah.
And she told it to Lainey, confided it, and Lainey's using it.
Yeah.
So she's so upset that, and really what she's upset about is not the thing, as we all know, just like we were saying. She's upset that she hasn't got anything Lainey's got, and that's what she wants. And she goes home and she has what she calls a wish box. And she takes the lid off. And in the wish box, there's a gift for her future daughter, who she doesn't have, and she thinks, I'm never going to have this, because she's already probably at this point.
She's panicking. Yeah.
She's 33 or something, and she thinks, I'm never going to have this. A townhouse in the city, one in the Hamptons, her dream man, her backup dream man, and she rips up all these pictures and throws them away because what's the point? I'm never going to have it. And she's so distraught. Ironically, she now has every single thing in that wish box. She has the daughter. She has another child. She has a townhouse in the city. They have a house in the Hamptons. Her dream man was Trey and her backup dream man was Harry. She's got every single thing in the wish box. And now she's looking at a picture of herself when she was 33 going, I just want that figure back. And it's this sort of reverse, but you imagined yourself to be happy then. You were absolutely miserable because you had nothing that you
like we were talking about before we started recording. Human beings are very simple and we just continue to want what we don't have or we're told we can't have. And so even if you are the luckiest person in the world, which Charlotte is, I'm not saying she hasn't had pain in her life, but she's a very, very fortunate person. You find something that you don't have. And for older people, that could be youth or, yes, it could be weight or for whatever reason, or if you've had children, it could be a pre-pregnancy body, etc., etc. And then you go, no, that's the thing that would have made me happy. Well, you had it and you weren't happy. So it doesn't work like that, does it?
Yeah, she was so desperate to be pregnant all through her marriage with Trey,
Yeah.
early marriage with Harry, desperate to be pregnant. And pregnancy is probably the thing that's changed her body the most.
Yes.
And now she's like, can I also have the body I had before I got pregnant? And the answer is no. And that you were never happy in that body, ever.
But also what people say to you it is a reminder when you say things that are horrible about your body. They go, well, your body is amazing and it is healthy and it has done these things. And for some people, what it's done is nourished children, grown children. And for the rest of us, it's like got us around, kept us rested when it told us when we'd had too much to drink, all of these amazing things. And we don't spend enough time going, why? All I do is say negative things about myself. Can I have a quick toilet break? Is that okay?
Yes,
My
go
tummy's
for it.
gurgling. I'll be back in a sec. Sorry.
No, don't. Of course.
I don't even know where the toilet is in here.
Hello, Guilty Feminists. This is Deborah. That's DF Dubs. We're recording more live episodes and you can come and see us. Please do. We are live at Soho Theatre in London in August on the 11th, the 12th, the 18th and the 19th. That's August 11th, 12th, 18th and 19th. Get tickets now. We're live from Chichester on the 21st of August. Coincidentally, I'm also doing my play there. I'll tell you about that more in a minute. And we're recording episodes of The Guilty Feminist and Global Pillage. That's a deep cut. We're bringing it back for one episode only at the London Podcast Festival on Saturday the 16th and Sunday the 17th of September. For tickets to any of these shows, go to guiltyfeminist.com and click on live shows. I'll be in Chichester, as I mentioned. Did I mention? I mentioned, I think, that I've written a play called Never Have I Ever. It will be on at the Chichester Festival Theatre at the Minerva for the whole of September. Like I'm a proper playwright. I feel like Neil Simon in the 70s. It stars Alexandra Roach, Amit Shah, Greg Wise, and our very own Susan McComber. It's about money, sex, power, politics, identity, and running a restaurant. For tickets, go to cft.org.uk. You can also get ad-free episodes via Patreon, Apple Podcasts, or Acast Plus. And if you're passing iTunes or Spotify, you felt like leaving us a 5-star review, we'd love you forever. You can review any individual episode. If you've reviewed us before, you can review us again. It helps other people find the podcast, and it gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling, and it gives us a lovely, lovely buzz. So we'd really appreciate it. Also, if you're not following or subscribing or whatever it is that you have to do, click that button. It really helps us. And now back to the podcast. Hey.
So sorry about that. All the talk about being in 3 pairs of Spanx gave me an upset stomach.
I did think, had you gone to take your Spanx off?
Yeah.
You came on pregnant with Spanx on and you looked at me and you went, it's fine, I can take my Spanx off. Deb's there being reassuringly, with her reassuringly non-flat stomach. I feel so much better about myself just looking at you. That's what happened. You've gone to take... Listen, I'm glad you've taken the Spanx off. They're not good for an in-utero baby, I imagine.
No, you'd be surprised. There are lots of... There's Spanx maternity and Skims maternity. And actually, they don't squeeze you in at all. But I think it's for people who can't bear the idea of not wearing restrictive underwear.
Yeah. I mean, I do think... I've always thought Spanx were unfeminist. Even before I sort of properly engaged with feminism in the way that I have in the last 7 years, I've always just felt like it just doesn't seem right. I mean, I'm a feminist, but I refuse to wear Spanx except with 2 dresses.
2 dresses. Oh, I see.
Yeah, I've
not
got
when
2
you're wearing 2 dresses at once. So you think might as well stick some Spanx underneath. I see. What 2 dresses that
I've got 2 dresses where I'm like, I don't wear Spanx, but there's a brand called Honey Love.
Oh yeah.
That does a sort of... It's not like I can't stand the ones where you have to peel yourself in, but there's a brand called Honey Love where they just, I don't know, it just feels like it gives me a smoother shape.
I think sometimes we like VPL and
making
that's kind of
myself
reason.
pretend to be smaller.
Yes.
I don't believe in making yourself pretending to be smaller. And also, it has to come out somewhere, so it just rolls over the next bit.
And I also think when you do something like that, then you take them off and you feel your actual self is wrong because it's wobblier and less restricted. And there must be something where it's a bit like one of those weighted blankets where it's you're getting this sort of hug. There must be, I've always thought that with them, there's something about just, someone's hugging my hips.
Well, that's what the Honey Love ones are like.
Okay.
And I very, very rarely wear them. But when I do, it feels more like just like It's look, I've got good posture. That's what it is.
Oh,
It makes me stand up straighter, but also they're very sexy. They're kind of really black and lacy and hot. I can't stand those ones that just look like, Trini and Susanna always used to tell people to wear them and then say, when it comes to the hot moment of passion, where, you're out on a date or something, you just go to the loo, you roll them up, you put them in your evening purse, and you pretend you've been commando all night. You pretend you've worn no pants to the restaurant. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. And he's like, you came to meet my parents. This was so inappropriate. It's like, it was this or you saw how the sausage was made when I literally came out looking like a sausage rolled up. I hate to think that it's unfeminist. I understand why people do things. And like you say, certain dresses, certain outfits, certain occasions. But there are so many, we said, body positivity has happened and Sex and the City hasn't noticed it. But like, has it? Like, I think I'm very unkind to myself. Lots of people I know are very unkind to themselves. We just now know we should be better. So I think so I also
now just feel guilty about my dismissal of my own body. Like, it's sort of like an extra weight. But no, it definitely has changed. Body positivity has changed things, like body acceptance. I follow a bunch of Instagram accounts and I genuinely do see myself as sexier. Like in the noughties, there was no representation at all. No. And it was just you were wrong and you were bad. Yes. It was so hard not to hate yourself.
It was explicit in the 90s, like ridiculously explicit. Look at this hag. Look at her cellulite. Who would love her? Like all this kind of thing. And now I think there's so much implicit. When Charlotte walks into the gallery, the first two women she sees are very, very beautiful, well-dressed and thinner than average. Mm-hmm. She didn't walk into a gallery and go, oh, everyone here dresses for themselves and is a non-model body shape. Yes, there are amazing Instagram accounts and writers and activists, but there is also the mass media still,
Yeah, well, a couple of weeks ago, Che was told to lose weight on their sitcom.
Yeah.
And they were having a weep about their belly.
Yes, yeah. Don't touch my body, which is for lots of people. That's the thing about, roll up your Spanx and have your hot moment. Thanks, Trini and Susanna. I felt like a pig all night who had to be sort of like put into a condom, an adult-sized body condom. What hot passion's coming straight after that? Yeah, feeling sexy is your body is pretty exciting, and anyone who gets to touch you is pretty lucky.
It's true. Yeah. It's very, very true. And I think the Che storyline, which just went away. Che felt bad about their body because they were told to lose weight for a sitcom, which I don't quite buy that, because Che's sitcom was about the contemporary issue of being non-binary. It was for a progressive audience.
But Che kept being not in control of something that was their story. So what I did think was one of the many things was, you'll wear this, someone copying your hair, the nationality of your parent being changed because of an actor. It was just one of many things where Che kept being undermined on what should have been their most successful moment, their most celebrated moment, the best moment of their career. And then it then eventually ends up with a huge rejection. That for me felt very authentic.
Yeah, to be fair, that's true. Yeah. I've had that many times in my career where I've been, my show has been squeezed into a shape that I don't recognise, and then someone's passed on it because it's a weird show in an unrecognisable shape.
I don't like that shape. And I think that's very common. And I imagine everyone working on And Just Like That and in the writer's room has been through it. So that for me felt very, very authentic. That's making stuff. That's trying to make stuff. That's trying to make stuff under the system.
That is true. And listen, also, I don't know about American network television as well. Maybe Che would be told to lose weight. But that storyline wasn't really resolved either. It was just like Miranda's saying, well, I love your tummy. And then it's like, I guess it's okay. Yeah. I don't think they're terrible at weight.
This episode, Che, and also, like, number one, I love how they ended Che and Miranda, because that to me felt like something the first series would never have been brave enough to do. Like, without a huge drama, we've got problems, it's going to get worse. We stop now. We don't overdo it. We don't cheat on each other. We don't do something for a storyline. I loved that. And I now love that they're buying stuff for their flat and having a beer with two much richer people who have just stocked your kitchen. I loved it.
Oh, yes, let's talk about that. So Carrie, how are you feeling about Carrie and Aidan first?
Well, So I rewatched it for revision because I thought I remember things like Aidan telling her to stop smoking. You know, I had red flags about Aidan. I didn't think he was perfect. But I think they're doing a massive rewrite because the actor who plays Big has been cancelled. I think if he hadn't been, he wouldn't be the big mistake. I think there is something, when you talk about Easter eggs, I think they're doing something quite almost breaking the fourth wall, going, that was a mistake. We made someone, you know, who has behaved terribly, apparently outside of the show, very successful and romantically.
And he was always toxic for her. Honestly,
awful.
I do think.
At his funeral, one of the other characters says, but why have we all forgotten how he treated her? Like, it's like, we have. And then now we haven't again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Aidan certainly wasn't perfect, and Aidan could be controlling, and Aidan was insecure himself. But the ways in which Aidan behaved dodgily, I think, were more human. Like, Big seemed to sort of enjoy tormenting her, really.
Yeah, he was non-empathetic towards her until he read her book. Big, like he treated her like she didn't have feelings.
But even the way he treated her about the wedding, like saying, I've had 2 weddings before. How do you think this big wedding makes me look? I'm like, well, she hasn't had any weddings, and she's a socialite, and she wants this big moment for herself. She's waited for this for a long time. Yeah. She's already in her 40s, and she wants a wedding. Yeah. So how do you think this makes me look? I don't give a fuck how it makes you look, mate. Yeah. You've had 2 weddings.
Well,
and it's not important to you.
How do you look now? You're dead. You died on a Peloton, and you're a mistake. You're cancelled. So there we go. Who gets the last laugh? The fact is, the moment where she said, I made a mistake, number one, I also think the actors are doing an incredible job, because sometimes the writing isn't exquisite and they play it so well.
How kind. They do. This was a great moment.
That long hug, I just thought was wonderful. I just thought it was really wonderful, really well acted. People are imperfect, but time makes a huge amount of difference. And it's about how Aidan comes back. I love how they talk about his family, his children, his real life. They're not pretending he's just this sexy bachelor. Yes, she's having incredible sex, which I love for her. And the whole, the psychology of, now Big doesn't exist. She can let herself go with another man. I thought that was a really good, I felt it was a very believable reason for her now having the best sex of her life, because Big was in the way psychologically of her sexual freedom. But I do think if the actor would still be appearing as a ghost if all the stuff hadn't come out about how he treated people in his personal life.
Wow, he'd be coming back to do pottery with her.
Because didn't they have ghost scenes in the first series that were all cut? Isn't that what happened?
Yeah, that's right.
So he would still be in it. He'd still be in it.
He'd be still just over her shoulder going,
Jay, a peppermill.
he'd be like, oh, you're back with the carpenter kid, all of that. I really love that the warmth between her and Aidan that was there when they weren't having a difficult time is back. And I really feel moved by the reunion and the way that because I felt like Sarah Jessica Parker's had sort of, I think the script's been demanding that she underplay and she be lethargic and slow and low and all of those things. And now I see her young,
playing again.
She's playful like she used to be. She was always so playful, and she hasn't been like that. She's sort of been in 4 layers, walking down the street, looking sad, not being very proactive. And now she's like her 35-year-old self, which I love in terms of her expression and her dynamics. And I really did love that moment. And I think actually she did make a mistake, because if she had the freedom, the psychological freedom to marry Aidan, they probably would have had a lot of fun.
Also, it's the difficulty if there's cheating involved, and I don't mean sort of like having open relationships and having sex with more than one person, but if you lie to someone, she lied to Aidan, she slept with Big, he then found out, you never get the chance to find out what could happen with that relationship if it was an agreed monogamous relationship. So the mistake, I didn't feel like it was Big altogether. It was, they never got to find out what could have happened in that very first journey. If that hadn't happened, they will never know. The other thing Aisling was saying when she came undressed today, which is they're doing so fantastic with Carrie, is no one is ever asking her why she didn't have kids or if she regretted not having children. So the storyline with Aidan isn't they could be my babies, or if we'd stay together I would be a mum. And when Big died, it wasn't like, you're alone now. You wouldn't be alone if you'd had children. And I think,
No, yes.
and I hadn't even noticed until Aisling pointed it out, how wonderful it is to have a representation of a woman of that age where people aren't, they've talked about the menopause and the fact they've gone through with it, and no one's gone, and do you have any regrets?
Yeah.
It's just taken for granted that it was a decision, a conscious decision that is respected, and people don't worry about her for that reason.
Yes, that's good. Yes, that's actually true.
I'm very pro this programme.
You are. You're selling it to me.
I worry that your listeners are going to be like, what? We don't come here for this.
No. We do say good things about it as well. We absolutely do. And no, we love the positivity. Alison Spittle said, I have to come out and say I love it. Yeah. I'm sorry. I apologise to everyone, but I love it. She didn't say I apologise to everyone, but that was the kind of jokey tone.
Yeah.
So I love the two of them being back together, having their in-jokes, going shopping together. And being in someone else's apartment means they're having to do that domestic thing of like going to IKEA and have that fun, which it reminded me of, we saw her do that with Berger, where they were, in Bed Bath and Beyond.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of scenes like that we've seen before, of this domestic play. And I hope when she gets to Virginia, which will be next week, that we see, there'll be lots of Easter eggs for that they've already mentioned, the traumatizing shack that he had upstate, where she had to be in the country as a city mouse.
Yeah.
But it'd be really interesting to see her interacting with his kids and how they respond to her, and whether they want their parents to get back together. It's been 5 years. I'm very pleased he's not in the middle of a divorce. It's been 5 years.
She met one of them. Do you remember that he turned around in the street and he had the baby harness on? Yeah. So she's already met one of these children. And that would be so crazy, because you're so boring as an adult when you're like, I met you at the Edinburgh Festival when you were and they're like, I don't care.
Yeah, he was in a harness, and he says, I call him my tater because he looks like a potato. Yeah. So I'm very interested to see how Tate's turned out. I hope he's turned out better than Brady.
Yeah, me too. And this chicken that lays an egg in a bed, that and the turtle who's worried about the dog are the two main characters from this episode. I was really into the animals.
As someone who's a vegan animal lover, we salute all the animals in Sex and the City.
Yeah.
Except there was a moment where they were talking about the chicken semen saying that's also delicious.
Yeah, but that was her way.
Clearly had someone her fork.
That again, I thought was pretty good writing. That's a way of showing she just doesn't. It's just hard for her to hear fun, nice stuff about Aidan and Aidan's world, isn't it? That was her.
Yeah.
Like, I eat chickens.
I'll eat that chicken.
Yeah.
Seema is avoiding Carrie in this episode and doesn't want to go to the Hamptons with her anymore, because she feels like, you've had two big loves of your life. You lost one, you've got the other back. I've never had a big love of my life, and I just don't want to be your third wheel and be reminded that I don't have that.
It's very hard. Again, people are imperfect. All of us have had this experience when your friend falls in love really, really quickly, and it happens so fast. And especially if you've got a holiday planned, and they have a huge sort of invested holiday, because the Hamptons would be an amount of time. I thought it was dealt with really well, in that, all of us have imperfect emotions that just bubble up, but they communicated about it pretty well, I thought. And Seema was very good at sort of setting her boundaries. This is about me. I just need a bit of space. And it's not about you being happy. It's about how it makes me feel about myself. Seema's storyline, and it's odd for such a obviously stunningly attractive, successful woman, but there's this part of her life, and she's hugely successful as well, but there's a part of her life where she keeps being told she's not successful, which is that she hasn't, and it's not just hasn't settled down, hasn't been in love. We met her parents in the first series, and they say wonderful things like, we just want her to be happy, but we associate happiness with coupledom, and it's very difficult to unlearn that or appreciate that. And Seema now is saying that she's maybe not happy, whereas we always presumed she was.
Yeah, that it's difficult.
I love her as a character.
I do too. Do you think this new man who's come in is going to be her big love? The man that the film producer she has to show around.
They're setting up for something. I think it's more likely that she'd get hurt. They're setting up that he's not a great guy. Actually, they didn't introduce him.
But she might have a big love with him, though.
Yeah, but big loves
don't always end well.
Exactly, and I think that's the point. Big loves can end in heartbreak, and your big loves can be some of your shortest relationships as well. It isn't always like long loves is different to big loves, is what I would say. Aidan wasn't a long love. He was short, really, twice. He was,
3 times now. Three
Yeah,
times. Three
3 times.
times. Third time lucky. What about Anthony, who fires Giuseppe for being gay explicitly and illegally?
This is, I think, I mean, it's not technically an Easter egg, but this is the bit of like, that feels like old Sex in the City. Actor gets
Samantha
cast.
did it once.
Yeah, so Samantha was not a real person. She was the least real. She was the most cartoony of the 4 characters. I don't miss her. I have to say, I don't miss her. Rewatching it, I fast forward her sex scenes because there are so many, and that's nothing against Kim Cattrall, who I think is iconic. But Samantha is the least interesting. It's the most like, it's like, yes, we are trying to have brunch. Why are you talking about that? I don't miss her. I'm glad she's not there anymore, and I hope she's really happy not being there.
She's coming back just for a phone call.
Yeah, for a phone call. I hope she got all the money. I hope that for her.
Oh, I think she did.
Yeah, exactly. So I
think she was offered £1 million for one scene.
Brilliant.
And she said only, and then she did the sort of statusy thing of only if I get Pat Fielding to come back and dress me, because Sarah Jessica Parker's not getting that.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I mean, status as fuck.
Have your wins, have your million, have your dresser. I want all of that for her. So this is not me slighting her, but those moments of unrealistic casting of actors, unrealistically finding people so hot and being so aroused and comfortable they had to have sex with them within 20 minutes. There's lots of things I just don't see happening in the real world, Deborah. Like, there are versions of it, but to repeatedly happen, no, thank you. And I think that's the thing with this Anthony storyline. It's very nice for him, but in real life, this is not how he finds love, is it?
I don't know, honestly, but I do know you cannot fire someone for being gay. Like, that is just, even if you're gay, that's fully illegal.
Well, that's why they put in that line about how he wasn't actually employed. He was still in his 3-month probation period, which is the terrible laws that we have that protects employers. Anthony doesn't deserve love. Let's try that then.
Anthony, bless him. He's the new Samantha. And Samantha actually did this once. She had the hots for a young
she did.
female assistant.
Yeah.
And she fired him and immediately shagged him on the desk.
Exactly.
In another series of things that would happen in real life.
I don't need that to happen. I don't need that to happen.
I quite like this romance. I mean, firing someone for being attracted to them is absolutely horrendous. And obviously, one would hope Anthony wouldn't do that in real life. But the sort of game of it, the TV comedy game of it was, I find you so attractive and now you're kind of coming on to me, I can't handle it.
But and
also, the end was quite romantic. It was quite, I'm fucked, he says.
I thought the character, the poet character is a sweetie. Like, he obviously is. And it's that, pixie fairy woman thing, but in a beautiful French gay guy. Because he's not real. Manic pixie fairy. That's what that character is.
100%. So I hope Anthony has some fun with Giuseppe. And then we've got Miranda. What did you think of this storyline? She pisses off the young interns at her law firm by getting the cushy jobs and a promotion in her first week. Yeah, I mean, I think I actually thought this was a bit of pushback from, like, we're fed up with being told that people are privileged. Sometimes people are also more qualified. That felt like that felt like what that storyline was. But actually, also, weren't you a corporate lawyer for 30 years? Well, then you do have value. Right.
Because Miranda is so aware of her privilege, and obviously that's been happening right since series 1. That's what her journey, that's what she's going through, which feels very, there are lots of people grappling with that, and she's making life decisions to become a better person in society.
She is in a very non-Miranda way, though. When the boss said to her, would the Miranda who graduated first in her class at Harvard and made partner at her law firm care what others thought? Yeah. Or something similar to that. I thought Cynthia Nixon was going to go, yes, no, she wouldn't, but I'm a totally different character now.
Yes. By the way. And again, I wonder what she as an actress has put into this, because I feel like all of them, in bringing back these characters, I think Sarah Jessica Parker is doing very, very good acting. I love her as Carrie, and I can see how much work she's putting into making her very 3-dimensional, and it's interesting and it's different to what she did last time. Mm-hmm. And I think Cynthia Nixon is someone who is so political and politically aware and hated Trump and those kind of things, but also, as her character keeps saying, I don't just want to be a white woman in a pussy hat. I need to do something. So I feel like her as an actress must have had some input, or they're influenced by her. Obviously, it's not completely the real world, but that is the discussion that people are having.
Yes, clearly she is more qualified. I still think there are probably other human rights lawyers who've got years of experience who would take over the maternity care. I'm never sure when women take career breaks that the constant conversation is it's really hard to get back in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Miranda
competition
herself
from...
didn't take maternity. She had full-time, in a tiny flat,
That's true.
full-time housekeeper, full-time babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
She had a live-in nanny. And that's what I was waiting for at that moment. She said, I'm taking maternity leave, was Miranda to go, I didn't feel like I could, or I didn't even want to. I had an accidental pregnancy, who is now an adult. And obviously there's that moment, I think it was last episode, where Steve said you didn't even want him. And I thought that, again, I think it's sometimes interesting to bring those things back, you know, in terms of the full life of these characters. But Miranda didn't.
That's the joy of having a show that's gone this long.
Yes.
Actually.
And getting to see them so much later. The fact that it isn't 5 years later, it's like, whoa, it is another lifetime later, isn't it? So much has happened.
Yeah. That would have been great if Miranda had said, do you know, I didn't think I could take maternity leave, or I just was in such a culture
it wasn't an option for
me.
I was trying to make partner. That's all I cared about at the time.
Yeah, that's all. And we were told that we couldn't. Like, it just wasn't in the ether that you could. And that would have been great.
And now it's still so difficult, because that woman could have replied and said, yeah, we keep saying things are better. But I can tell you, 9 of the people I graduated with who took a year off and now are getting half the cases that their male counterparts who had children but didn't have to take any time off have had. I mean, this is another whole conversation, but we want the world to be better, but it isn't that much better.
Yeah, we're more aware of what's wrong, but putting it right is a very different thing.
Exactly, but we're not going, hey, it doesn't happen now. It's like, it really, really is. It really, really is. It really does. I like that Miranda wants to work in human rights, and the next thing is like, so what? So like, what's going to happen? I like all Miranda scenes that don't involve her getting fingered, using a vibrator, showing her bum. I've found some of Miranda's sex stuff really confronting, and that's good, because I actually, again, that's where I think the actress is pushing, like, watch a woman my age
try and put a strap-on on.
yes. And I find kissing embarrassing. I don't find the strap-on.
Yes, that's right. You have to leave the room if someone kisses someone.
And Miranda's sex scenes have all been very, very sexy, as in very sexually. They don't feel cartoony. Like Samantha always felt cartoony. She was always just writhing on someone, like, sort of like.
Yes, like aware of a camera,
yodeling, not actual. Whereas Miranda shows actual pleasure. She depicts actual pleasure, and I find it incredibly embarrassing.
Just the whole concept of pleasure, embarrassing, awkward.
Yes, talk about it. Don't show me.
Just do it in your own time. Any catwalk hits or misses for you this week? Any outfits? I mean, obviously there was the ridiculous, what I thought was quite a twee dress anyway for someone in art. It was sort of like that black dress that Charlotte had with the pink collar and the pink belt. I thought, this is very twee for the art world to me anyway. It's not very high fashion. It's very kind of suburban, actually. I didn't get that. And I also didn't like...
It's very girly. And that's what Charlotte's sense of style always was. It was very feminine on the side of, lacy collars, small, tight waists. I mean, like, Miu Miu kind of, Alexander Rich kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't feel it was the most interesting dress she could have worn back to her first day. But also, Carrie was walking down the street in a dressing gown at one point, like a pale pink dressing gown.
Yeah.
I was like...
I find the clothes very uninteresting, which I think is why I didn't watch Sex and the City the first time round. I only watched it during COVID, so it's a whole new environment to me. And I watched it with modern eyes rather than at the time. I'd love to be like them and be in New York one day. So I forget to even notice. They seem to me like a bunch of very badly dressed women most of the time. Tea towels on shoulders, visors. I like it when like something like she'll have a bag that's the shape of a pigeon. And I'll be like, I bet you get that in Claire's Accessories. And then you Google it and find out it's £5,000. And you go, well,
that's
you should have gone to Claire's Accessories.
That's right. I didn't think this episode was so much about the clothes as the love between her and Aidan, which I am thoroughly enjoying like a warm bath, like a warm noughties bath.
Yeah.
It's like traveling in time, but also getting to see that sometimes things can work out years later, and they are having fun. And I really am enjoying John Corbett's performance. I happen to know he's very good friends with Chris Noth, so it'll be. I wonder what's happening behind closed doors there, and what John Corbett's saying to Chris Noth, because they were the two that stayed in touch.
Very good friends. So like real life, actual friends.
Yeah, you know, in the pandemic, when everyone was doing those reunions and interviews about the old times because we couldn't make any new content, they were asked if they still stayed in touch, and Chris Noth said, I mean, all of our lives have gone in different ways, and we all live, you know, some of us East Coast, some of us West Coast, we've all got families. We just, we don't have time for that kind of old socialising and stuff. But he said, the one person I stay in touch with is Corbett. John Corbett and I are really close. And the irony that Big and Aidan ended up as the best friends from that show.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see.
You say that because we know you mentioned the farmhouse earlier. Actually, what was so wonderful was when Big turns up and he's heartbroken about another woman and he gets drunk. And eventually him and Aidan, he sort of throws a basketball at him. And they have this amazing, massive, ridiculous mud fight. And then
she's shouting, "You're middle-aged!"
Yes, yeah. And it's so funny and it's so ridiculous. And it's, really fun, very entertaining. And then they have eggs and are friends. And Carrie's watching thinking, is this how men bond? But they do have very good friendship chemistry, the two of them. They do have very good friendship chemistry. So
that's right.
I do. Yeah, I think it's performing well. I think there are very healthy, well thought messages in how they're showing relationships, which is they're not perfect. They have histories. People have divorces, children, other lives, grief, but can still have a nice time making chili or having a beer or having a mutual friend. And it's because I don't have any of those things. I don't have any of those things that I find it very aspirational.
You do. You have your husband's going to be back soon, and he's going to make you a vegan chili.
Yeah, my boring old current husband, who didn't let me have a wedding because he'd had a big one before, by the way. I didn't know that was a big storyline.
Wow.
I've got a marriage certificate and never had a wedding. So next time...
What, because Steen didn't want to have another wedding?
Because he'd just got married to someone else and had a massive big Greek wedding, And so it was just like, I'm not doing... No one's doing speeches again. Again, I think actually, I mean, not in Big's, the character's defence, but it is a bit embarrassing if you've said to everyone you know, I am going to love this person forever. And they all, give you presents and get dressed up and get babysitters and turn up, and your mum and dad stand up and cry and say how happy they are. And then you change your mind.
Yeah. And then you find someone else you like more.
Yeah.
Then it's like, could you now say that about this person? Could you give a speech about how much you love this person being in the family?
Everyone's sitting there going, we believed you last time. All right. Okay. As if we're going to trust your judgment.
You're the boy who cried love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Funny you should say that, because I found an Easter egg in this conversation. John Corbett was the groom in my big fat Greek wedding. So, and you missed out on a big fat Greek wedding because of Steen.
Yeah. So do you know what? You know how this story ends? I'm going to marry John Corbett. He's my second husband. We have a big fat Greek wedding. My second big love. Just like Sex and the City. Steen dies on a bike. It's all going to work out great.
Steen, can we just touch wood and say Steen does not die on a Peloton?
He left me for 4.5 months.
Please
4.5 months is left. He can die wherever I say.
He's left you with an 18-month-old. Is his TV job going well, though? Is he enjoying it?
I know. I think it's been very hard being away, actually. It's been very hard to be.
Because he misses his baby.
Of course. I don't think you realise how hard it would be.
Sarah.
I often, I don't know if you do this, because of Instagram, I sometimes think if something really tragic happened in my life, what would I post? So I would love him to die on a Peloton, because I could, obviously not the same day, but when the dust has settled, I would do quite a funny and just like that pun on the fact that my husband had died in the same way as someone in a TV programme. So he was actually making it easier for me. It's so hard to do a really heartfelt one.
Yeah. In a very real way, though, I'm not sure that one grid post would be worth it. The loss of the father of your children. I'm not saying it equals itself out. I just need to know what to post in that situation. I mean, it's important to think it through. That's the kind of thing I think of.
Yeah.
I think of my own funeral. I think of Tom's funeral. I think of, I always think about those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Just, in the bath or something, I just start
Yeah.
imagining what it would be like.
Yeah.
I think it's as well to plan your own funeral a little bit, because otherwise people will get it wrong.
And also then what you want to happen with your online content. Like, do you want it deleted? Do you want everyone like writing underneath?
Yeah, I think I'll go with writing underneath.
Writing underneath.
But I do want I do want a live celebration. I don't want one of those funerals where people go, oh, she just wanted us to dress up and laugh. I don't. I want you in black. I want you crying.
Yeah. I think we should all wear, because when I think of you, especially with black, I would think of, the wrap dress and, the big hat. I remember your Edinburgh poster where you had mobile phones all around your head.
Oh, so God, that's going back. That's a deep cut.
I'd like you to get buried with mobile phones all around your head, like that poster.
They were all like 90s Nokias and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I can't believe you remember that. That's so embarrassing.
The reason, Debs, because how long we've known each other, is I came to see that show twice. Because you had reviewers in, because we're old school friends.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I think of it. No, this is what I would love to go to.
It was very good the first time.
It was good. I would never have come again if it hadn't been wonderful. And as you say, you talk so much to the audience. It's a very different show.
I had to. There was only 10 of them.
But here's the thing that I'd love to say to people in Edinburgh. Actually, if anyone in Edinburgh is listening to this as a nice aside from the festival, is everyone I know is hugely successful, started out playing small rooms in caves that are, dangerous for the health and fire traps.
I honestly think I nearly got cholera that year in that cave. Wet cave that we had to perform
with friends coming in to be bums on seats because an online reviewer from microwave.com's coming, and this could change everything. Like, all of us started there. It's I
was so miserable at Edinburgh. Oh my God, I was so miserable. I cried
it wasn't meant to be bad memories. We're talking about your funeral.
No. Listen, it's good to see how far you've come.
It is.
It's a bit like Charlotte and her wish box. The things that I had in my wish box then, many of them I have now.
You have.
And it's really important to remember that and to go, no, you push past these things and you get there. And you're right. If you are in Edinburgh and you've got one person in the audience, as I saw, there was a story about
that's what I thought of. I thought of that girl and I remember those tears. And it's why I'm not strong enough to go to Edinburgh anymore, because I would still cry those tears to a room of hundreds, after a room of hundreds. So that the ego bit doesn't go, but that bit where you think this is so hard and no one believes in me and how can I do this? Every single person you admire, that's what they were doing.
I have felt that.
Yeah.
I actually had a conversation today with someone who was also not in Edinburgh this year, and I said I'm not going up. Usually we do the Guildford Feminist for a few nights, and I'm not going up because I'm rehearsing this play that's on at Chichester in September that everyone should come to, and seamless plug. And I said to the person, even going to Edinburgh off season when there's no festival, the smell of the hops when I get off the train puts me into such a state of anxiety.
Yeah.
Just the feeling of I'm going to be reviewed every day. I'm going to be just feeling lonely. I'm going to feel isolated. I'm going to be never more lonely than when you're in the performers bar drinking alone, thinking, can I talk to them? Do I know them? Do they like me?
Are they going to look over my shoulder as someone else walks in who's having a much better festival than me? Yeah.
Don't even need to ask that question. They definitely will.
Are they going to say something because they've read one of my middling reviews and they think I know, and they're going to be the person who tell me, oh, I thought they were really harsh about your ending.
Unfair.
Yeah,
I thought that was really unfair what they said in 3 weeks. I thought your show was definitely 4-star, not 3.
Yeah, no one thinks you're dead behind the eyes and would be better off doing something else. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Oh God, it's so horrible.
I was in a play once at the Fringe, and somebody said that I had all the sparkling charisma of boiled ham.
Yeah.
Of a boiled ham.
The list once gave me 2 stars and said worse than genocide.
Oh my God.
My first ever hour. 2 stars worse than genocide.
Would they give genocide 3 stars?
Apparently. Well, look. It depends how you're using success as a measure, I guess. Yeah.
2 stars worse than genocide.
Worse than genocide, yeah.
Genocide should get no stars. It's
the kind of thing that trolls write when they're like asking her about comedy is like asking Myra Hindley about childcare. That's an exact quote of something someone's wrote under an article.
About you?
Yeah. But they're the kind of things that they burn themselves into your brain.
It's very hard to move past them.
It is.
But one must release. I actually found this because I didn't see the boiled ham at the time.
Yeah.
I saw it years later when I was Googling something else and wasn't expecting to see it, and I found it incredibly funny. And I still find it incredibly funny.
Great, yes.
But if I had seen it at the time, it would have burnt itself into my brain and I would not find it funny.
And you have to go out and do a show that day with what you're hearing in your head is they're all thinking boiled ham, boiled ham. And then that's what would happen in a bar. A comic you like would come up and say, hey, do you want a glass of wine? And you go, do they know about boiled ham? Do they know I'm boiled ham? I'm either going to have to tell them I'm boiled ham and I'm fine with it, or wait for them to go, so... cooking any pigs recently? Oh God, it is. It's so cool. It's so
you're
mean.
Much more live pig than boiled ham. All the sparkling charisma for boiled ham.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was in a play and I don't act much, so they might have been right. But I just think, God, imagine writing that, knowing that the person might see it and being cool filing it, just sleeping well that night. Yeah. I could never do it. I couldn't be a critic.
No.
Because I just can't bring myself, because I know what that feels like to have that said.
Yeah, but I think about it even in terms of us talking about this TV show, which is massive and the writers' room is across the Atlantic and is nothing to do with us. I still think, having made things, hopefully, hoping that people would understand what I was trying to say, it's so easy to go, this is what you failed at, this is what you didn't do, this was a glaring hole, this is your blind spot. I'm so gentle because I see the good intentions in things.
And also how hard it is to make things and how hard it is to make at all and how hard it is to make things well. So having said I could never be a critic, I have criticised this show.
But what I would say as well is that
I'm not saying stuff like that, though. I'm not
the
going,
huge improvement from
time.
second series from first series is why people are so upset, and this is me, who don't get commissioned after a first series, because there is no space to make mistakes in TV anymore, because it's ratings and it's too expensive. It's like it's too expensive a place for you to make any mistakes.
And it used to be, like the first season of Blackadder is...
Or The Office. People didn't watch it. You know, they still got a second series and then people, you know, it became a massive cult hit.
Yeah, I think the first season became a cult hit on UK TV Gold or something like that, and that's why they got the second season.
Oh, really?
But I think, because they brought it back then on the BBC, realising that they buried the first season of The Office. They buried it like 11 o'clock at night and switched the times around and stuff. And it was only that you could binge it on Gold that made it a hit. Otherwise, it would have died a terrible death. Which brings us around to the fact that, is that not the show that Steen is currently making, the Australian Office?
Yes, the Australian Office, yeah.
And he's playing the Jim part or the Tim part.
Yes, he's playing the romantic lead. This is how it is being married to an actor. They're very depressed for 90% of the time because they don't know when they'll work. And then they get a phone call going, hey, you can kiss another woman and get paid. And you have to say well done to them. They're doing, so happy for you. Yeah.
Well, look, fortunately, season 1 of The Office is all about pining and no kissing, isn't it?
It is. But Kim Cattrall is playing Pam, so...
God, can you imagine? That would be so funny.
I would love it.
That would be so funny.
I would love it.
Well, listen, it's been absolutely wonderful to have you on, and this has been a wonderful analysis of this episode. I'm glad you're enjoying it so much, and it's a very brief break from motherhood when your child is asleep, very briefly. And is there anything you came to say that you didn't get to say about And Just Like That?
I said earlier that Harry's my favourite character. I actually think they've done wonderful things with Harry and Steve, but I just think Harry's so funny, and I love his and Charlotte's relationship. And again, it's underplayed. It's not a storyline. He's just there. I loved the whole dust coming, and I think they're showing very, very aspirational, healthy, monogamous relationships, and it's wonderful. That's what I think. Not that that's the only good kind of relationships, but yeah. Nice.
Me too. I agree. And also, as a public service announcement, don't drink bone broth. Just don't.
Don't think that your employability is connected to your waistline. And if you get fired by someone for your sexuality, please contact Miranda, who's now a human rights lawyer.
Excellent. Listen, this has been an absolute joy, Sara Pascoe. I wish we worked together more. We should do some more stuff together because you're just an absolute joy in all of our lives. We're lucky to have you. And by that, I do mean the world. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry now to end this and send you back to your child and dog.
Oh, no, I'm excited to go back. That's what happened. Oh, yeah, it's Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah.
Have a fantastic weekend, Sarah.
Thank you. And you. Good luck with the play.
Absolutely delightful. And just thank you so much. Never Have I Ever, Chichester Festival Theatre, all September. Tickets are going fast. Do you have anything to plug?
If anyone's listening now, I've got a London show at Regent's Park Open Air on the 13th of August, and I've got my first novel coming out on September the 14th, which you can pre-order, and it's called Weirdo.
Oh, I love that. Please come on The Guilty Feminist and talk about that.
I'd love to.
You have been listening to The Guilty Feminist. Watch us, and just like that, with me, Deborah Frances White, and my very special guest, Sara Pascoe. The producer for The Spontaneity Shop was Tom Zielinski. The Guilty Feminist is part of the Acast Creator Network, and just like that is on Max in the United States and Sky Comedy and Now in the UK. See you next time for episode 9. There goes the neighbourhood. The Guilty Feminist is provided exclusively from Acast. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.